Hi everyone, welcome back to the Sahara podcast. My name is Elia Rizvi and I'm the Public Relations Coordinator here at Sahara. In this episode, we're going to be talking about our caregivers, and we have a very special guest for this episode. So without further ado, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Jay. I'm from the Melrose location, and I've been a manager there for 4 years.
Today I'm going to ask you some questions about your caregivers, specifically, how you as a manager facilitate a strong connection with your caregivers and how your staff works to empower your caregivers. So to start off, can you describe your role as an office manager and kind of connect it to how you use it to support your caregivers?
I think it helps for me because I was a supervisor first. So I had my own caseload, and since they've already seen me and I've been there, they're used to me. So they're able to connect because I've already know their stories. I already know who they're caring for. So I think that it helps. And then when they see other caregivers see that, then they're like, oh, okay. If they're connected with her and they seem to be good with her, then they give me the opening to be able to help them. And for them to be able to say, oh, I can go to her and she'll be able to help me too. Yeah,
so really building that relationship with your caregivers.
Yes.
And then that kind of helps too, since you were a supervisor, you're able to understand like your staff's load too and like relate to them better because you know what they're going through.
Yes, and all the stories that they get of people's families and life, it stays with you.
Yeah,
it does.
Of course. Okay. So what would you say is one thing that people may not necessarily realize that comes into play to supporting caregivers behind the scenes?
I would have to say behind the scenes, it would be the mental load and balancing self-care into that and making sure that if they don't take a stop to take care of themselves, they won't be able to take care of their clients.
What would you say are some challenges that caregivers face? And then how would you say that your office staff goes about helping them face those challenges?
I would have to say family dynamics. When a caregiver is going into a home, there's a family also with the client. Navigating the do's and don'ts with that can be a little frustrating when you have other people in the home directing you to do things that are not allowed in our plan of care. And maybe sometimes thinking that we're there for the whole family sometimes gets a little off balance, and the caregiver getting frustrated with that. And us always having to step in just to make sure that they understand the plan of care and what the worker's there actually for, which is the client, and to make sure the client is okay. Everything else the family takes care of because they live there.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of going off what she just said, for those of you who aren't a caregiver or a client, the caregivers that we send to our clients are there specifically for the client. And, because of the nature of the work that they do, like housekeeping, for example, it becomes kind of confusing for the client and their family, distinguishing between, what is doing housework for just the client versus for the entire family. And a lot of times what ends up happening, like you mentioned, is that if the client is living with their family members, extended family, those members, might start taking advantage of the caregiver being there, which can become really difficult. So can you walk us through kind of what it looks like when a caregiver calls in with an issue and how you guys kind of tackle that?
When a caregiver calls in, I always tell the supervisors to make sure we get all sides of the story. Because the way somebody takes something probably isn't the way that person meant for them to take that. So we always want to make sure we get everything that went on, both sides of it. And we always are neutral. There's no sides. We don't take any sides. We just want to make sure everything is understand communication so that everybody's happy. So we always have to make sure that they give us time, because we can't fix it right there and then, because we actually have to call the family, find out what happened, and then we come with a solution by the next day. And normally it is miscommunication, a bad day. which our clients have their bad days, and they don't really just say I'm having a bad day and communicate that. They just act it. So we have to be mindful when they're doing that and not take it to heart.
Yeah. And that kind of reminds you of like a saying that, I don't know if you've heard this growing up too, that there's always like three sides to a story.
Yes.
There's one side, the other side, and then the truth.
Yes.
Because we can't help but, be biased in our experience.
No, exactly. And you don't think that that's true until you're in this field and you're like listening to, they sound the same, but that's just how the person took it that got twisted a little bit.
So going back to talking about, caregivers calling in with issues, in those situations, how do you and your team make it known to your caregivers that they're listened to and that you hear them and you're validating what they're saying, while at the same time tackling, getting the whole story, and that maybe what they're remembering of the situation might not be the whole situation?
Real active listening.
Yeah.
We never want nobody to feel we're taking a side. So we always have to be neutral, but we also at the same time have to let them know we understand their frustration and how they feel. Because we don't want them to feel upset working in a home. It's one of the nicer jobs, I would say. You get to be in a home, you get to be with somebody and help somebody out. So it's a nice feeling. To be frustrated and stressed shouldn't be on the list as long as we can help them. And as long as we're giving them the ear to listen and giving them a solution that we are going to come up with, I feel that it gives them that relief, like, okay, I'm not just making this up. This is something they're going to help me with.
And then I think that's also why we, in our trainings, we talk about, active listening, and we cover important topics like how to talk with people who have dementia, who may have Alzheimer's, because it's not like communicating with an average everyday person. When you're working with the elderly, you have to be very mindful about things. You have to let a lot of things slide that you wouldn't regularly let slide. So I think that's why our trainings are also so important, so that they keep that in mind. So kind of going off of supporting them emotionally, how would you say you help recognize and celebrate, like good work that your caregivers do or your staff does, so accomplishments that they do? How do you celebrate that, or how do you let them know, appreciate them, I guess?
I would have to say Mr. Rana does a great job in supplying us with the things that we need to do that. From book bag giveaways, the iPad giveaways, to even right now we're doing the scrubs. And the t-shirts with the long sleeves, and people are just so happy. They're like, scrubs now? This is great. And it gives them that every time we have a little something. I mean, even check day having popcorn. Just little touches like that. It just helps that we know that they're going, that we appreciate them. And anytime I see somebody and I remember they talked to me about something, and I check in on them. If I run it, hey, how's that going? And that makes it better, because it's not like I forgot about them and moved on. I remembered, and they'll be like, oh, thank you. But I feel that if you don't do that, if you don't connect with the workers coming in and out, or the families, then it'll put us with every other home care agency.
Definitely.
And just make them a number instead of actually getting to know the families. And I think that's what sets us apart.
It does, definitely, I agree. Yeah, and then kind of if you think from their perspective too, like if I was a home care aide and, if I noticed that my supervisors or my manager was remembering me and like checking in on me, then I would want to work harder too,
Definitely.
If I feel like my employer doesn't care about me, then I don't really care about the employer.
That's right.
It's a give and take.
That's why I work the way I do. Because I know Mr. Rana really...
Exactly. It goes all the way up to even our CEO, our president. Like, we feel that respect from him, so that we want to give our all when we work.
Yes, definitely.
Can you describe maybe a situation that was difficult with a caregiver and how you resolved it?
We get a lot of different calls, but I would have to say the main ones are usually sometimes if there's 2 home care aides in a home. There's always going to be one doing more than the other, or the other one feeling that they're doing more than the other. And you wouldn't think that we'd get that as often, but due to the fact that the clients sometimes get so many hours, they do need 2 home care aides to divide the load that they have to be responsible for. So when they call and take turns calling about the complaints, because normally one calls and then the other one calls. And it definitely could feel that maybe you're doing more work when you do go to work. You might feel that. But we decided that when we have issues like that, that we would make sure to kind of do like a little schedule per week. So the tasks are not always just on one person.
Oh, okay.
So if one caregiver did laundry that week for the client, then the next week it should be the other caregiver doing the laundry.
Yeah.
So those big tasks that somebody could feel is always falling on them doesn't always fall on them. And I feel when you implement that, it helps because now they're not feeling like one's doing too much or always the same thing, and now it balances out their tasks more, and they're not calling saying I'm doing more work than she is.
And I also feel like for the client too, if the client feels like one of their caregivers is doing more for them, they might have more of a soft spot for that caregiver versus the other.
They do,
and then they can feel that, that my client is being kinder to the other caregiver and like it has better terms with the other caregiver. So that's a great strategy.
It does happen though.
Help stop that, And then I feel like we kind of already covered this, but what would you say is like the key element to resolving issues quickly and effectively?
I think it helps that we've gone through it already.
Oh, yeah, experience.
Having the experience of all the situations that come in, sometimes you're like, oh, it's something I've already dealt with. I know how to work that through. And then having staff that also has family that has seniors with them, they've gone through things, so they're able to also help with their experience.
So how would you say that working with caregivers so closely has changed your view on home care?
You have to have the heart for it. Not just anybody can be a caregiver. You have to be, the heart has to be instilled in you, that caring, the patience. I think definitely I would get to see that part where you have to love what you do so that you can give them the quality of life that they need, right? Because it is towards their last stages, so we want to make sure it's pleasant. And then I feel like looking from it from the outside, like not actually knowing the inner workings of it, it might just seem like, oh, they're just going and cleaning and they're just doing this and that, but there's so much that goes into it, and helping them with their emotional health, and then seeing them decline. Sometimes it's difficult. It's heavy stuff. That's why no, it's not. And that's why when a client does pass, it affects our caregivers. They need time. They need some time off because they were caring for that person, and now you got that attachment.
Of course.
So we have to go through the grief process for them too. And we have to remember that they go through grief just like the family did, because they were hands-on too for that time. So we always have to remember that and give them the time that they need so that they can continue to do that job, because now they're going to go take another client and continue the same thing that they were doing. So we want to make sure they get that time and that mental health that they need so that they can continue to do this job.
And then again, going off of when we were talking about plan of cares, another task on the plan of care is companionship. So it's like it's their job also to build that relationship and be there for them. But then, you know, obviously a relationship is two-ended. So the caregiver also gets attached. It's not just the client that's getting attached.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It is nice.
Yeah. What's one lesson that you maybe have learned from a caregiver that stayed with you? Is there ever an instance where, you know, a caregiver told you something that really stuck with you?
I would have to say you have to have tough skin in this field. But also have that caring, loving, motherly for the people, because that's what they need. Especially at the stage of their life, they like to be tended to. And sometimes you don't get to see that because you're not in the client's home. You don't get to see how happy they are when they're getting their food taken care of for them, or helping taking a bath, or you know, that kind of a joy that somebody's caring for me. They get to see that.
Right.
They get to see the joy in the face that somebody's there, being kind to them, helping them, being their friend. If you think about it, if you're home alone all day, your caregiver is that one person you know is going to come see you.
Look forward to it.
And they're like little, you know, emotional. It's like, yeah, they're coming today. And they get so happy that you forget that being in the office. You forget that part.
And then we usually just hear like the complaints, you know, like when something goes wrong. We don't really hear all the...
I always say the complaints come in the quickest, but the compliments and the good things that happen don't come in quick.
That's true.
Or people don't even bother to report at all, right? So it's nice to know that what they're doing in the client's home is valued.
Definitely. And I think we should also like keep in mind that if we're not hearing any complaints, it's because they're all very content. They're happy. We're not hearing that they're happy, but they are.
Yes, definitely. They like it.
And then to kind of close off this episode, my final question to you would be, what's like some advice that you would give to someone who is starting off as an office manager or even a caregiver on, you know, creating these support systems and whatnot?
Not to be afraid to ask for information, because a lot of people don't know the information that's out there for them that can make their life easier. And to not forget self-care, to always make sure, because if you don't take care of yourself,
you can't take care of someone else.
You can't take care of a client.
And then going off of what you said about not being scared to get information, I think you can always learn something.
Oh, yes.
You never get to a point where you know everything.
No, yes. I think I learn something every day. Like, you'd be like, oh, that's great. I didn't know that. And there's tons of information that comes out that people didn't know that just came out. And I find that us making sure that we got that available for them, it really helps.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you for having me.
And thank you to all of you for watching. Be sure to like and leave a comment, and we'll see you on our next episode.